It's Cougar Sports Saturday.
Touchdown! Stayed inside the boundary and gets in for 6.
Cougar Sports Saturday, a presentation of KSL Sports.
Ritchie right to the rim, driving score!
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Here's your host, Mitch Harper, on Utah's legacy home of the Cougars. KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Welcome back into KSLSports.com and KSL News Radio. It's an exciting time of the year. BYU football getting ready for what could be a exciting season. Some changes, of course, at quarterback, and a guy to break it all down, not only at BYU, the Big 12 and college football at large. You know who he is. Phil Steele, the creator of the Phil Steele College Football Preview. Year 31 on newsstands at Barnes & Noble and PhilSteele.com. He joins me now. Phil, how you living, man? How's life?
Things are great right now, Mitch. This is my favorite time of the year. It's no deadlines, no magazine deadline, the 7 months of work there. And then football season is a lot of 100-hour work weeks. This time of year, I'm just doing a bunch of TV, radio shows, preparing for this season, maybe working 60 hours a week. So it's like being on vacation.
It's exciting times, Phil, and I appreciate you carving out some time for me to talk about this BYU football team that had an 11-2 campaign a season ago, and I'll admit, following the team as close as I do, that caught me a little bit off guard. I kind of thought maybe 8 wins would be a great benchmark in year 2. They go to 11 this year in year 3. What's your read on this team now that Jake Retzloff has officially moved on to Tulane? What do you make of this BYU squad?
Well, I think they're still a legitimate Big 12 contender. In fact, I think there's 8 teams this year that are legitimate Big 12 contenders. Retzlaff last year had some good moments, no doubt about it. But, you look at the stats, 58%, 20 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. I think they've got 3 quality quarterbacks battling for the job, in Bourquet, Hillstead, and Bachmeier. Any one of the 3 who wins the job could have similar stats to what Retzlaff put up last year. I think Sitake did a tremendous job with this team. And you look at the running back core, I like L.J. Martin coming back, the top rusher from last year. Receivers, Chase Roberts is back. Made the cover of my West Coast magazine, by the way. He's had nearly 1,000-yard season. I'm intrigued by Tiger Bachmeier from Stanford coming in at wide receiver as well. And then the offensive line, Coach Sitake feels they have 6 guys who can start. They have guys that can play tackle or guard, and then 5 guys behind him that are comfortable playing, so he likes the depth on the offensive line. Defensive line, good amount of talent. I like Tanavasa up front and nose tackle. I think he's an NFL-caliber player. Linebacking core exceptional with Glasgow and Kelly. And then the secondary, they've got talented guys. They need some guys to fill some holes, but I think they look strong. So overall, this is a very good BYU team, and I think even losing Retzlaff, I believe they're going to get solid quarterback play.
And following up on that quarterback play, you've got Trayson Bourguet listed as the second guy after Jake in the print magazine. I know the digital edition continues to update on PhilSteele.com, but on the print copy, you had Trayson Bourguet second. Was that from insight from your conversation with Kalani Sitake, or kind of more field-based there with going with Trayson at number 2?
I'd have to say both, but, because Coach Sitake basically said he's comfortable with any of the 5 guys he's got at the quarterback room. That includes the true freshman, Emerson Gelman. So, he was comfortable with all 5. And then I had to interpret what I was hearing and also put in my own personal effect on it, and that's why I listed Bourguet number 2 there. And by the way, when the magazine went to the press, I was expecting Retzlaff not to play. So I wouldn't rank BYU any lower than I have been in the magazine. That's pretty much where I thought they'd be.
So you got them tied for 7th in the Big 12. So that was kind of then that standing. So I think a lot of people that saw that initially thought, oh, is Phil just selling on BYU? But you kind of thought that's maybe the floor of this BYU team then.
Yes, definitely the floor, and I'd put him at the floor. I figured with the honor code, and Chris came in, and I was talking to him, and he said, he's probably going to have to sit out games with suspension. I'm like, well, that doesn't sound good. I'm going to assume he's not playing, I put BYU at the very bottom of where I thought they could possibly finish this year because of that.
Talking with Phil Steele here on KSLSports.com and KSL News Radio. You can listen to all the BYU football games here on the legacy home of the Cougars, KSL News Radio. And Phil, I'm a proud reader of your magazine. I've got all 31 editions of your magazine dating back to 1995. I've been reading this since I was a kid. And I bring that up because we've seen a lot of changes with BYU football over the years, from the WAC, the Mountain West, Independence, now the Big 12. And, just from your vantage point, covering the sport at large, what do you just make of the evolution of BYU football and how it's taken shape under Kalani Sitake? Because there's been some peaks and valleys under Kalani, but right now it seems like the program is in a really good place. What's your kind of view of BYU football over these 31 years that you've been covering college football?
Yeah, I think it's in one of its best places. And you go back to when Utah got taken into the Pac-12 and BYU was left in the Netherlands for a while there. And you're wondering, what's going to happen? And now that they're in a conference, and we saw it last year, they're in a Power Four conference, and they proved they can play with the big boys. Nearly got to the Big 12 title game. Looked like they were headed there for a while when they were ranked number 7 in the country before the Kansas game. I really love what Kalani Sitake is doing at BYU, and I think they're in a tremendous conference and will contend for the title on a yearly basis, which is a big plus over where it was when they got jilted a few years back.
When you look at the BYU football program and you're kind of putting together your forecast for conference, are there certain computer ratings that you live by? I know you've got multiple different ratings and computer ratings to kind of put together your conference outlooks, but are there certain pieces that you really rely on that when the numbers come out, you're like, man, that's pretty telling, and that's going to play a big role into how I view a team fitting into a certain conference in a given year?
Yeah, I think, I do 9 sets of power ratings. And in the Big 12 this year, I got to tell you, the biggest thing for me was schedule. That's really what determined it. I took a look at 8 teams in the Big 12, and I was talking about Baylor, Utah, Iowa State, Arizona State, Kansas State, Texas Tech, TCU, and BYU. And then factored in the schedule, who plays the big boys and how many games are on the road, how many games are at home. And that really was the determining factor. You look at Baylor this year, they're playing Oklahoma State, Arizona on the road. They've got a very manageable slate. They've got 5 Big 12 home games. Utah this year does play BYU and Baylor on the road, but they are loaded. And then Iowa State, their road games are against Colorado, TCU, Cincinnati. So the best schedule road-wise or home away-wise went to those 3 teams. You go and take a look at Arizona State, for example. They're playing Utah on the road, Iowa State on the road, Baylor on the road. It's 3 really tough venues against 3 really tough teams. Same thing with Texas Tech. I know they added a lot of talent this year, through the portal, and we're already an experienced team. But Joey McGuire's got a team that's 15-5 at home and 6-10 on the road. And on the road this year, they're playing Utah, Arizona State, Kansas State. And that's why I think a lot of folks are picking Texas Tech right at the top. But I see those 3 road games, and I'm like, wow. And plus, you have to factor in the West Virginia game. That's going to be cold weather on November the 29th. And the Houston game, that could be a tricky one as well, because Houston has a really good defense. And let me take you back to the SEC for a minute here, and the reason that I'm relying on schedule. Last year, Georgia came in, the number 1 ranked team in the country, but they had 3 road games. They had to play Alabama, Mississippi, and Texas all on the road, and they lost 2 of those games. This year, they play 3 of those same 3 teams are the 3 toughest games. They get all 3 of them at home. One of the reasons I picked Georgia at the top of the SEC. So schedule generally does have a lot to do with my forecast.
I like that breakdown. Again, talk with Phil Steele here on KSLSports.com, KSL News Radio. Is it becoming tougher, Phil, to forecast teams and conferences with the transfer portal? And I know your magazine kind of goes a little bit later delivery date now because of the portal, which I love, because getting all the portal names, that's one of the great things about your magazine. But is it becoming tougher on your end to forecast these conferences with how much these rosters do change?
Yeah, it's becoming a little bit tougher. Now we go to the press 5 weeks after the transfer portal closes. So this year we went to the press the first week of June. We used to be able to go to the press, heck, the middle of May, but we can't do that anymore. So we went the first week of June. We were able to capture almost every single move that was made in the transfer portal. The only one we didn't capture was one that wasn't really affected by the portal. That was the Retzlaff move. But that's, as you mentioned, updating the digital. But yeah, it makes it a lot tougher. Although, I had an interesting thing this year. I'm looking at homegrown teams. And I did a blog a few days ago. If you go to philsteele.com and take a look at the homegrown teams. And what I mean by that are teams that are primarily made up of players that were recruited by the school, have played at the school, and now seniors. You look at the last two national champs, both Ohio State and Michigan, basically homegrown teams. Ohio State had 5, 6 top transfers come in, but that's just supplementing the team. And I think they stick together better as a team. And give you an example, Florida State last year. Florida State hit home runs in the transfer portal 2 straight years. Now, last year, when things started to go south, where was the team base? They were a team made up of transfers, and all of a sudden the team went south and finished with just two wins on the season. That's why I think in terms of the Big 12, you're going to see teams like West Virginia, Oklahoma State, UCF, teams that are heavily relying on the transfer portal, and a lot of additions coming in at post-spring. I think those teams are going to struggle this year. So we're going to see how that plays out. I like BYU. They're more of a homegrown team. They're not relying on the transfer portal for their talent. They're using it to accentuate the overall team that they have.
Yeah, big reason for that is Kalani Sitake and his culture. And I'm curious, Phil, over the years when you've had your sit down conversations that go more than an hour with these coaches, what's the vibe like with Kalani Sitake when you break down this roster, go through every single player? How much does Kalani enjoy it, and just maybe the tenor of those conversations that you have annually with Kalani?
Well, I tell you what, he's a guy that loves football. I love football, so we right away bond in that area. And Kalani's always been legit with me on each position. He'll tell me strengths, he'll tell me weaknesses. And he's always felt good, though, these last couple of years about building the team. Last year, for example, in the preseason, he was highly confident he was going to have a team that was going to contend. And, I'm like, well, we'll see. And then naturally at the end of the year, there he is with his 11-win total. So, no, I always enjoy my phone calls with Kalani. I think I remember the first one we had. I was even saying, "Hey, you want to help me out on my all-conference teams?" It was that type of conversation. So I think he's a legitimate, good guy. You know what I mean?
Definitely, and I think it comes from his time when his mentor Lavelle Edwards. Lavelle always had a thing where he'd say, "I feel like we got a chance to be a pretty good football team." It seems like Kalani takes that same approach. Last couple things here for you, Phil, and appreciate the time. College football playoff. I asked this because I remember just, for years annually, you were a big advocate for the 4-team playoff. That was it. Don't go any further. I'm curious, Phil, now that it's a 12-team and maybe next year we're at a 16, maybe it stays at 12. I'm just curious what you're thinking of how the postseason is now structured in your beloved sport with college football, and do you like the direction of how a national champion is being determined these days?
Yeah, and I was, as you mentioned, a big 4-team advocate. I thought last year, after Georgia got left out of the 4-team playoff in 2023, which I thought had Georgia made the playoff, they might just have won it. It was too bad that they didn't win the SEC championship game and got left out. I was like, well, maybe the 12-team is good. Now, I will say this. In the FCS, where they play multiple playoff games, I don't even know how many teams qualify nowadays, it sometimes becomes a battle of attrition. And take a look at Notre Dame last year when they got to the national championship game. They were down their top defensive lineman. They were down their top offensive lineman. And Jeremiah Love was not 100% a running back. They got all beat up in the playoffs. I don't want to see the healthiest team win the national championship. I want to see the best team. So that would be the one downside of the 12-team playoff, or the 16, which I do think we're moving towards. But the upside would be there's a lot more programs excited about college football in that final week. Can we make the playoffs? Can we not make the playoffs? Another downside might be what's going to happen with the bowl games as we expand the playoffs. But overall, I was pretty excited about the playoffs coming into last year, and hopefully the seeding gets better. We don't see an Oregon having to face Ohio State in the first round or their first game of the playoffs, and we don't see those bye week teams all go 0-4 based on A, the layoff, and then B, the fact that some of them didn't deserve to be bye-week teams. I think they got that sorted out. So sort of up and down on the playoff, but what the heck? Let's go 12-16, see how it works out.
I love it, Phil. Phil Steele, the publisher and creator of Phil Steele's College Football Preview. It's at Barnes & Noble, and Chase Roberts is on the cover, folks. I mean, only fifth BYU player to ever grace the cover of the Phil Steele College Football Preview. Phil is someone who, as a kid, used to pull off the last page of the magazine and send feedback to you. It's always a pleasure and an honor to talk college football and BYU football with you, and I hope to do it again down the road. And I'll be keeping buying this magazine as long as I'm here. I'm reading this magazine till the end, man.
Awesome. Mitch, you got 31 magazines there. I'm hoping to get another 31 for you. And you know what? Since you do have a stack of 31 magazines, anytime you want me on, you just let me know. I love it, and I greatly appreciate you being a longtime reader.
That's Phil Steele. Again, you go check out philsteele.com. Get the magazine at Barnes & Noble. His magazine sells more than anyone else at Barnes & Noble. I saw that tidbit today. It's great stuff, Phil. Again, appreciate the time.
Awesome. Thanks, Mitch.
That's Phil Steele, creator of Phil Steele's College Football Preview. Great insight there from Phil. Taking a break. On the other side, we'll get to some more fall camp breakdown as BYU wrapped up its first scrimmage of fall camp. Some of the positions of strength for this BYU football team through 2 weeks of camp next here on Cougar Sports Saturday.